This is Andi Purewal for Boxing News. I'm joined by Kalle Sauerland here in Telford. Kalle, how are you? How is Telford treating you?
Well, Telford is a place with much history for us. 1999, I was 22 years old. Fourth round, Marcus Beyer, Richie Woodall, WBC World Championship. And I've got Frank Warren and my dad in the first row. I'm sitting there as the sort of bumped up little kid in the second row. Ref calls it off, I think, in the fifth round. I get into the ring, live on Sky, only to find out the fight wasn't over yet. But we did win the fight in the end. So I have memories of Telford. Great night for Team Sauerland at the time. Marcus Beyer winning the WBC World Championship here. And here we are again, a German and a Brit. Friday night, live on Channel 5. Absolute banger start of the year for Channel 5 boxing. There's do some massive numbers I'm expecting Friday night. Worldwide, on the home of boxing, DAZN, all over the world to be seen, this great event. And yeah, we've got an absolute firework of a main event. Sam Eggington, doesn't need much introduction to the British fans, never in a bad fight, the absolute warrior of warriors. Difficult to believe he's only 30, but it is, I've seen the passport. And Baraou, if you don't know Baraou, he is a bronze medalist at the World Championships as an amateur. Very talented fight. Fell just short earlier in his career in the IBF final eliminator for the World Championship. Regrouped, did a couple of years with Adam Booth, is now training in the States, and the winner will go on to fight for the WBA World Championship, we've just been informed. So big night, but massive stakes here. Check the bookies, go to ladbrokes.com for your fight bet and find out that it is actually not Kalle saying it's a 50-50, it is a 50-50 fight. Pick your winner.
That's arguably one of the best opening sequences I've done in a while with somebody.
You didn't ask a question, did you? But I've had a 3-hour drive up here. You're my first one, so I am ready to go.
I'm glad to hear it. It is a 50-50 fight. I agree with you on that perspective. But for either man,
you don't have to agree with me.
No,
I'm neutral here. I'm just telling you what the bookmakers, and they always beat me, unfortunately. I never win, and I'm not allowed to win, so I don't bet anyways. But if I did win, it's a 50-50. So, yeah, that's what they've made it.
What's the key factor for either man to try and tilt the fight in their favour to come out on top on Friday night?
Yeah, look, Sam, there's not too many mysteries there. He's been in some very tough fights. His defence is his weakness, his offence is his strength, isn't it? He comes forward. He doesn't know the gear reverse doesn't exist in the Eggington language. So he's a fan favourite. It's going to be a packed house here, hot atmosphere. Abbas, he's going to have to show everything that people who know about Abbas have said for many years, since the amateurs. Big weight on his shoulders. Boxing Germany right now is, sort of the Luton Town at the moment. Nothing against Luton Town, great stadium. But it's time for the Germans to hit back, and Abbas is the most talented German out there. So he's been around a few years now. This will be his moment to go and seize that glory, and to take it, take the big fights back to Germany. That's the game plan from that side. So it's a very interesting fight. It's all set up for a banger on Channel 5.
You guys somewhat dominated that market across Germany and what have you when things were really booming over there, and you've just mentioned kind of a Baraou hopefully being the next leading light to take those big shows back there. Is it a surprise for you, or that maybe isn't what it once was? What's been the kind of falling factor, as it were?
Well, the falling factor, unfortunately, isn't my smile. It's talent, mate. It's talent. You can go back to the early 2000s in the UK, where boxing was at a rock bottom. at least in our memories. You're too young for that, but I remember it. And Germany had, I don't know, 50, $60 million a year TV market, probably bigger than the United States at that time, without the pay-per-views, of course, but it was the days of Showtime and HBO, so the budgets in Germany were even bigger. But that's because there was a huge interest. Why was there a huge interest? Again, not my smile, but the talent. So, Germany benefited massively when the wall came down, that you had all these East Germans who were boxing at school, and it was part of the DNA. It wasn't football, it was boxing. So that's where they had this huge spike. Was a massively successful market for 2, if not 3 decades. So but look, it's a sleeping giant, isn't it? You don't need 5 of them. You just need 1. You need 1 star. Germany's a very different market to the UK or any other market. Actually, it's unique in the sense that they really go for big events. From huge shows and show acts and everything else, and then really there's no in between, which is, it's not healthy, but it's just the way the market is there.
Moving away from all things German boxing, coming back to the UK from Chris Eubank Jr. Kalle, what can you tell me? What's the latest with him?
No real update. I've spoken to Team Eubank many times over the last days. Got another big call this weekend with them. The options are out there. I'm not going to discuss the options because we all know what the different options are. The names are the same as I said probably a few weeks ago or a few months ago. But I do think there's movement there. So hopefully something a bit more to say after our discussions.
One thing I do want to ask about is there was some reports about a week or so ago that Canelo-Eubank Jr. might have been in the kind of running. Since then, obviously, we've seen Canelo reported looking at the Belanga and Jaime Munguia fights, but were there any talks there of a potential fight with Eubank and Canelo?
Not on our end. Boxing is a strange thing, but not on our end. It's a great fight. I think, though, reading into it, Cinco de Mayo, they'll go with a Latino versus a Latino, would be my bet. I do think the economics of a Eubank fight are interesting for Canelo as well, because you unlock a big market in the UK. I'm not saying that Canelo Munguia is a big fight in the UK as well, but not on the level of obviously bringing in a Eubank Jr. would be. So I do think there's an economic argument for it, but at the same time, a Latino against a Latino makes a lot of business sense in the States. So
the other name at the forefront of most people's minds is Conor Benn. We know he's got his hearing on the horizon. Once that's out of the way, will talks be revisited again? Talks can be revisited at any time when there's an appetite from either side. At the moment, as I've said, presented options to Team Eubank and wait to hear back on what their decision in which way they want to proceed. Moving away from all things Chris Eubank Jr. and to Harlem Eubank, the younger Eubank there. What's the latest with Harlem? So my brother's more handling than me, but as I spoke about Harlem yesterday, he's had such a great last year, and there's a lot of talk about Lewis Ritson fight potentially, which I think is a great fight to make for him now. I think that there was also talk around a potential Conor Benn fight. And I think that Harlem's in a place now where he's going to go on to, I'm not going to say big fights because never outgrow yourself, but a big fight to move on with more big fights. If you lose your first big fight, unless you've done a great job in that fight, you generally go back down the gravy train a bit until you get back up it. So, I don't want to ruin what we've built up in the last couple of years. I think he had more viewers than anyone else on television in the United Kingdom last year. So he had a great platform. The names out there, Harlem Eubank's out there, and he's obviously got Senior on board now, which has raised the PR train massively. But ultimately, I think we're let's say a week or two away from announcing something. Obviously, you just mentioned Chris Eubank Senior's on board now, and since he's come into the fray or a bit more involved, shall I say, he's kind of pushed the narrative of pushing Harlem up to 147 now. Are you on board with that, or if you mentioned Lewis Ritson, we're known for seeing him at 140, for example?
A promoter would, ideally you'd like everyone at heavyweight, wouldn't you? But so what we think and what happens weight-wise, despite the public perception, weight-wise, the decisions are really taken by the guy who's got to make weight, and that will be in talking to his trainer, nutritionist, advisors, whatever. And of course we'll say, look, this weight class has got these names. I mean, it's down to you to make a decision. But contrary to public belief, that's not the promoter's role. The promoter can only line them up and say, right, this weight class we got this. That we could potentially do it at catch weight, but that's how it works, not the other way around.
Domestically, just at 140, there's obviously some great fights there. Dalton Smith's been mentioned, Adam Azim as well. Would you feel like it might be a bit of a missed opportunity at all if we didn't get to see those fights and Harlem involved in them?
Yeah, but they're fighting each other. Dalton Smith is fighting Adam Azim. We're led to believe. That's what the negotiations are at the moment. I'm not involved in those, but the negotiations will be called. So once they fight each other, their profiles will be raised as well. I think they do need to be raised, those profiles. I think that, the argument, the public argument will be, well, Dalton Smith's better than Harlem Eubank. Well, we haven't seen them fight yet. So I don't think they're miles apart. I think actually, on his day, I think Harlem wins that fight. And the public name of Harlem Eubank is much bigger than either Dalton Smith or Adam Azim. The numbers don't lie. Let's go look at the numbers. They're on. They used to be on Teletext 301. You could see the exact viewing numbers, but they're public numbers, so you can see the viewing numbers that Harlem Eubank's done in the last 2-3 fights. So it's the name, isn't it?
Just want to get your thoughts on a few other fights before I let you go, Kalle. Tyson Fury-Usyk being postponed. I just want to get your thoughts on the postponement, the cut, and how you think that might play a factor now in their rescheduled bout for May 18th.
I think the cut's a cut. Right? Don't read into it. It's a cut. We've seen it. I mean, it's not Hollywood. It's not makeup. It's a cut. So that's what happens. It's an odd cut to have on by the protectors. When I say odd, it's not the classic cut you see in sparring across the nose on the inside of the eye. Who cares? It's a cut. He can't box like that. He can't train like that. So the fight's off. What they've done fantastically in Saudi Arabia is done within 24 hours of it happening. And I know for a fact that it was on that day that it happened, because we have the co-feature to that fight with Myris Breedis, J.R. Pataya. In 24 hours, before we'd even be notified, there's a new date. That's the way to do it. I can learn from that. All promoters can learn from that. Okay, they've got a bit of a different situation in Saudi Arabia, but they take advantage of that and do good for the sport. So you straight away, how often I've been annoyed when people say, oh, the fight's been cancelled. I say, hold on, no, it hasn't been cancelled. It's called postponed, right? But we're not like Adele, who drops out of her shows in Caesar's Palace and says straight away rescheduled dates are. No, in boxing you've got to wait 2-3 weeks, don't you? They didn't. Saudi Arabia announced instantly, within 24 hours, the rescheduled date. So no one said it was cancelled, they all said it was postponed. That's great news.
We've got two big heavyweight fights coming up next weekend in Saudi Arabia. Joshua Ngannou first, the headline event. We know what dangers Francis poses from a Fury fight. What do you expect to see from this bout?
I don't know. My gut and my head tells me AJ all day long. I think the first few rounds will be very interesting, and then I just think AJ's the experience, the stamina, for totally different to MMA. The later rounds he's going to grind him down. That's how I see it. But then you sort of think, like, hold on. But I saw the Fury fight. He didn't grind him down the stretch. But then where was Tyson really? Was that part of the training camp for Usyk almost? So was he not at that level? At the same time, he's put Tyson on his arse. He can certainly do the same to Joshua. So it's a really interesting fight.
Parker versus Zhang on that undercard, which is split opinion. A few splinters have had to be pulled out when I've asked people about that fight. Do you have splinters?
Going Joe. Going Joe all day long. I think, much has been made of Zhang because of the Hrgovic performance. where people forget that Hrgovic was coming off a 12-month break from the ring. People look at the Joe Joyce fight, but that style for Joe Joyce is all wrong as well. And I just think that Andy Lee, great trainer. I just think they're gonna work that man out. He's quite. I mean, it's in the nicest way because he does it very well one-dimensionally, but he's quite one-dimensional. Zhang, so he's a machine. He comes forward. But, Andy Lee's crafty fella, and a great trainer. And Joe's got a great boxing mind. I actually think it's going to be quite one-sided.
Just for British heavyweight scene, Fabio Wardley, Fraser Clarke, March 31st. Again, your take, please, Kalle.
Great fight. I think Wardley's one of these weird ones, and we had Gorman against Wardley, and Gorman had a great first round, and Wardley sucked it up. Gorman made mistakes, but Wardley capitalised and took those mistakes. I don't know whether Fraser at the pro game has been able to up his level yet. So I'm going to go with Wardley, although I love Fraser. I just think that the matchmaking for Clarke should have been stronger before this fight. And I don't mean fighting King Kong, yeah. But I just don't know. For me, it's early. Despite that big amateur career and stuff like that, it's just a different game.
Final one I want to get your thoughts on, Kalle. We had a bit of a heated press tour between Josh Taylor and Jack Catterall last week. I wish we'd have seen you up there as well, getting involved, or at least trying to keep them apart. But what's your thoughts on their rematch when it swings around April 27th? I
think Eddie did an all right job keeping them apart. Must be that new whole men's health approach. I've done a lot of press conferences with Josh Taylor. He's a fiery one at press conferences. But it was Catterall who grabbed him, if I saw it right. I saw the clip on socials. I agree with Eddie. It's a throwback fight. It's a fight I'll watch, and believe it or not, I don't watch that much boxing live outside of ours. I'll pick them because I watch so much boxing all year. So I normally catch up on planes or trains or automobiles. On my iPad, I've got it all downloaded, and I'll catch up. Sometimes it takes me 2 weeks later to watch it, but I will watch that fight live. It gets to me. Those sort of fights, they do it for me. It's like this Friday as well. I'd watch that if that weren't my show. It's those sort of, ones that there's a needle. It gives you that feeling of a row. Who
do you think comes on top in that row?
I've got to go with my man Josh. We've got a lot of history, and I think he's fantastic. When he's on form, he's unstoppable. It's a big word to use, unstoppable, but he's one menace. Everything is nasty, vicious. He's got to get that grip back, or else it will be a tough night for him. But I know he can do it. Sam looks like a fantastic boxer as well. I've got to say, I didn't think that much of Catterall till that fight, and he really impressed me. And I think he's learning as well. So the question will be how much he's learned, of course. But I've got to go with my man Josh. We do have big history together.
Kalle, it's a pleasure as always. Enjoy the rest of your time here in Telford. Hit me up if you need to know where the spots are. Thank you for speaking to me in Boxing News.
Thank you, Andy.